Sir Jonathan, Sir Jo.
Yes, Ma'am Jo.
Okay. So just inform me, we're going to start na ha.
Yes, Ma'am Jo. Exactly na we're going to start the program.
Naiintindihan lang, nag-echotan.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning po, sir.
Good morning.
Hello.
Hi, Blaga.
Hello. Hello, Sir Jonathan. Good morning.
Hello, Sir Isagani. Good morning.
Hello,
Good morning,
ma'am.
Sir
Good
Isagani.
morning. Alright. Good morning, sir. Marinig ako, sir.
Yes, sir. Audible naman po.
Okay. Thank you. So, in a while, mag-start tayo.
Opo.
Paki-accept daw, sir. Co-teacher daw ni, Ma'am Maribeth. Sir Jonathan.
Walang nag-pop up dito sa akin na may magpapa-admit.
Ah,
Okay.
Ma'am
Sige.
Jo, Ma'am Aline,
Sa YouTube.
host natin.
Tan, medyo choppy ka, Tan.
Good morning.
Good morning, Laga.
Ah,
Si Ma'am Laga.
para na si Ma'am Anita, Ma'am Jo.
Opo, andito siya kanina, sir.
Ano abi siya Ma'am Jo nang may training abi siya subong last day sa training nila.
Ah,
Pero kanina nandito siya. Nag-request siya. Pero nag-out siguro si Ma'am. Message ko na si Ma'am Baikon. Okay, so 2 minutes remaining time. And then we are going to start na maybe, Sir John. Okay, I think we are going to start na kasi it's already 9 o'clock, Sir Jonathan.
Doon, ma'am. Just, reminders of the record button, Ma'am Jo.
Okay na, Stan. Okay na. Okay. So, good morning, everyone. Ayan, magandang umaga, magandang buhay. Ayan, isang mapagpalang umaga sa ating lahat, and we are so lucky enough because God has given us this time na magkakaroon tayo ng webinar. So to our participants and speakers to this webinar, particularly to Dr. Genaro Japos, a professor in the Advanced Research in Behavioral Science, a pleasant morning to us. So this is Jonalyn Parfasio, your master.
Sila yung makita dire. Lumangi ko ba? Ay, sorry.
So we are gathered this morning for this advancing design on qualitative research webinar, and I am so proud and lucky to be a part of this session. Before proceeding to the proper part, may I request everyone for our opening prayer and singing our national anthem, Overture. I communicate with all I am for you. You hold my words in the palm of your hand, and I am forever. Jesus, I believe in you. Jesus, I belong to you. You're the reason that I live.
Ma'am Jo? Ma'am Jo, hindi naman mabatian.
Okay, sorry. Walang audio po.
Oo, wala. Hindi. Hindi
Wala po,
marinig.
ma'am.
Ay, okay. Sige, wait po ha. Kindly inform me po ha through the chat box pag meron pong audio or what. Kasi naka-share audio naman po.
Ayan na, marinig na po.
Okay, thank you po.
Ay.
Ma'am, wala na po yung audio, ma'am.
Wala, oo. Wala talaga. Sa ilahag yan.
Wala naman.
Ay, ayan na, meron na.
Wala pa rin, sir.
Andyan na po, ma'am. Ano, wala siya.
I glorify you for being our God. You have promised that the man that seeks after the Lord will be like a tree that's planted by the rivers of living water, and that they will grow and prosper and have great success. Father, we pray that we may prosper in all that we do, and that your hand would lead and guide us in the years that lie ahead. We pray that our life may bring forth fruit, spiritual fruit, even 100-fold fruit. Lord, also our prayer that we may grow spiritually, grow in grace and in the knowledge of you. May we run the race of life to win the heavenly prize of the high calling which you have promised us in Christ Jesus our Lord, and that we may finish the course that you have set before us. May we become increasingly dependent on you, so that whether we have much or a little, we may live our life successfully in your eyes. Help us to set our hearts on your desires, your will, your kingdom. Help us to yearn more and more to be successful in our healthy work and our spiritual growth, rather than in seeking the empty success of the world and the empty prosperity that is from the world, even if it means having to diminish in our eyes and in the esteem of others. May we see you first and your righteousness, Lord, and not crave the things of this world. To your praise and glory, in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Bayan ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Ayan, so okay, so pasensya na po kanina, no, nawawala yung ating audio. Okay? So doing research can have a huge impact on our life as a student or even as professional, even if we don't realize it. As we embark in our journey of conducting our own research, it is important for us to be equipped with the basics of research. Through this, we will be able to appreciate the value of research in our chosen field. And without further ado, to welcome us to this important webinar, may I call Mr. Jonathan Roque to give us his very warm or hot welcome words. A virtual applause to Mr. Jonathan Roque.
Thank you, Ma'am Jonalyn, for that very nice intro. Um, you know, having this kind of endeavor is a big privilege to us as part of the the class under Dr. Genaro. And before that, I'm going to give my appreciation to Dr. Genaro Japos for having this um, you know this webinar in in fulfillment of his requirements for us. But I hope na hindi lang ito maging requirements para sa amin, but it serves as a venue for us, all teachers here, even the students under me, ay magkakaroon ng meaningful itong ating webinar. You know, the sense of this webinar is that qualitative research aims to study the things in their natural setting, to make sense of phenomenon in terms of meaning people bring to them. Meaning, uh, ang qualitative research ay isang natural na bagay in which we can make sense or we can make meaning from the people and bring to them the research in which makapagbibigay ito sa kanila ng halaga ng justice pa, kumbaga sa aming study is makapagbigay sa kanila ng justice. And with the topics to be presented later, we have the phenomenological approach, we have the oral history, we have the case study, and of course, we have the overview about the qualitative research. So, uh, I I am so glad with 21 participants here for gracing our webinar na kung saan without you, hindi po namin ito magagawa. And as according to our professor, sharing the gospel of research is one of his legacy na kung saan lahat ay makikinabang because this is not just a body of knowledge but a body of wisdom. So without so much further ado, I welcome you all and let's enjoy the rest of this webinar. Thank you so much.
Okay, so thank you so much, Jonathan, for welcoming us all. And not you worry, sir, mabibigyan talaga ng justice mamaya yan. Okay? And now for us to understand why we are here and why they conducted such a webinar like this, Mr. Isagani Zolina will give us the rationale and or the purpose of this program. Sir?
Thank you, Ma'am Jonalyn. Okay, a pleasant morning to all the participants for this webinar in qualitative research, and also to my fellow discussant and resource speaker, Sir Jonathan Roque, Ma'am Flore Betty Pomesino, and Sir Judy Baldimore. Actually, this webinar aims to highlight the following: overview of the qualitative research, and also we will discuss some of the tips on how to develop a qualitative research title and steps in conducting a qualitative research, emphasizing phenomenology, historiography, and case study. Actually, we organized this webinar as part of the requirements in our subjects in research under Professor Japos because we wanted to share our insights, knowledge, and skills in qualitative research to the community of professionals like you. So we are happy to share with you some of our insights, knowledge, in order for us to avoid the so-called inbreeding. So this is a crossbreeding. So once again, good morning and enjoy this webinar.
Okay, so thank you so much, sir, for that information. And I am lucky enough because I was also invited by Sir Jonathan na especially that I am also handling research subject with the third year BE Ed students at SKSU Access Campus. So, and for us to know and recognize who is involved in this fruitful endeavor, let us welcome Madam Flor Nepomuceno to present to us the participants of this webinar. Ma'am?
Okay, good morning. I am honored to present to you the participants from Eustacio Barcatan Elementary School. So my colleagues, they are here. So can you open your cam? Didn't open. Okay. So basig wala sila cam or mahina ilang signal. So okay. So actually I have here how many colleagues? 1, 2, 3. Kahina daw lang signal, di sila kasulod data ra mo lang gamit. So welcome. So ana. Okay, open na ilang cam. Okay, thank you for coming here. And also I think we have the colleague of Sir Jonathan. Sir?
Yes, ma'am. They're from Maudadato Elementary School.
Yes, okay.
And some students under me
And
colleagues with the
also some of
from
his students, okay. And of course, we have also the colleague of Sir Isagani Zolina. Colleagues or maybe students, okay. So
Ay,
welcome.
hello. Ara na sila.
Okay, and also the colleagues of Sir Judy.
Sorry po, ma'am. As I invited them, they are not available this morning. Perhaps some may
Okay.
be joining later.
Okay. Pwede pa man na mga pa, sir.
Yes, yes po. Yes.
Okay, so welcome everyone and thank you for attending this seminar.
Okay, so thank you so much, ma'am. Okay, so alam na natin at kilala na natin kung sino-sino yung mga participants natin sa umagang ito. Ayan, so thank you so much, Sir Jonathan, at sa lahat po ng nag-organize ng webinar na ito. Okay, so ito na, hindi natin patatagalin. Now at this time, we'll proceed to the lecture proper. And for us to learn things regarding research, I am glad to introduce to you our first speaker to talk about the introduction about qualitative research. He is a master teacher too of Mindanao State University College of Education Training Department, teaching English and descriptive research subjects. Up to present, he has 23 years of successful teaching experience, out of which are 11 years of services at the Department of Education Region 10 and 12 years up to present at MSU CETD, General Santos City. Moreover, he is presently teaching MAED or the Master of Arts in Education, subjects like Reading 210 with a descriptive title, Reading, Readiness, and the Beginning Reader, and Reading 215. Okay, the preparation and evaluation of reading materials at the Graduate School of MSU Jensen. He has also taught MAED education subject for one semester, 2017 at the Graduate School of Notre Dame of Marble University, Coronadal City. As a secondary school paper advisor and national, regional, division winning coach in journalism of Ozama City National High School for 10 fruitful years. And as a resource speaker in English and journalism in the school division and regional levels training workshops and conferences, he was awarded as one of the outstanding secondary school paper advisors of the Philippines representing Region 10 last 2006 at Calibo, Aklan during the same year's National School Press Conference. In addition, he was also designated as the Department of Education Division of Izami City English Coordinator last June 2006 to June 2008. He was then a principal qualifying exam passer given by the Department of Education Region 10 in relation to academic certifications last 2006. He was also a member of Kapisanan ng mga Broadcaster ng Pilipinas after passing the qualifying examination last 2002. Next semester, he will be writing his dissertation related to the education at the Graduate School of Mindanao State University, General Santos City. Hopefully, he will finish it as soon as possible to continue helping mold learners' minds towards excellent service to all people. Thank you, and may you be with him in this commitment towards making every learner a totally developed human being. Help me welcome our first speaker, soon to be a doctor, Mr. Judy L. Baltimore Mae. A virtual applause, please. Sir?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Ma'am Jonalyn, for the introduction. By the way, I would like to welcome my MAED reading students who are now joining our webinar as I invite them a few minutes past. We have Ma'am Palapar and Sari Bushes. They are all teachers too. So welcome to our webinar this morning. Before I start, I would like to say thank you to Sir Isagani Zolina, Sir Jonathan P. Roque, and Ma'am Floribet Z. Nepomuceno for accepting me in their group to be one of one of the discussants this morning. So thank you very much. So I only have, I think, no, Sir Rocky, I only have, 20 minutes for my part on the overview of qualitative research. Once again, I hope that you will learn some things from the lecture that we have learned in our class with Dr. Genaro Japos. So may I share to you my slides that I will be using in this morning's lecture. So I have with me here Introduction to Qualitative Research. First and foremost, we will have to review on the definition of research. I think everybody knows on this that research is a scholarly, careful, and detailed study into a specific problem, concern, or issue, using the scientific method to arrive at a solution. And then in research, we have two types, and all of us know about these two types. I just want to read this. We have the quantitative and the qualitative. May I focus on the qualitative? Qualitative involves collecting and analyzing non-numerical data. Examples, we have video or audio, to understand concepts, opinions, or experiences. It can be used to gather in-depth insights into a problem or generate new ideas for research. Moreover, qualitative research begins with assumptions and the use of interpretive theoretical frameworks that inform the study of research problems addressing the meaning individuals or groups ascribe to a social or human problem. Qualitative research is concerned with the opinions, experiences, and feelings of individuals producing subjective data. It describes social phenomena as they occur naturally. So we have here on the screen, flash on the screen, the differences between quantitative and qualitative research. May I just read this qualitative column only as I focus this one? Qualitative focuses on exploring ideas and formulating a theory or hypothesis. Analyzed, qualitative studies analyzed by summarizing, categorizing, and interpreting. Mainly expressed in words. Requires few respondents. Open-ended questions are used. And the key terms to think and to remember all the time, we will be using, I will be conducting qualitative research are the following: understanding, context, complexity, and subjectivity. So, these are the differences between quantitative and qualitative research. Moreover, on the differences of data collection methods. For quantitative, the methods are these are only some of the main of the methods: surveys, experiments, and observations. On the other hand, for qualitative method, you have interviews, focus groups or focus group discussion, ethnography, literature review, and the likes, which my co-discussants, our teachers, our speakers this morning will be discussing later. I have with me here some samples of qualitative research titles. We have here the role of a learning management system during the COVID-19 pandemic, the beliefs and practices of Christians in the Philippines, wedding traditions of the Ifugaos, the accuracy of events in the life of Jose P. Rizal, and the impact of the use of social networking on non-governmental organization effectiveness. So these are only samples or some of the qualitative research titles. So as what you can see, there is a difference on the title itself, right, compared to quantitative research titles. Naturally, by the way, before I proceed, before you come up with qualitative research, you need to first think of the problem or the topic that you want to tackle on. And one thing we should remember is that when we are going to look for our topic or research problem, we should see to it that we should have read first several, shall we say, review of related literatures, or in us, we have read several RRL, so that from there, we can get research gaps. And from those research gaps, we will come up with our research title or with a research problem, particularly in this case for qualitative research titles. We have the approaches of research designs, which our speakers this morning will be talking about. We have the phenomenology, ethnography, inductive thematic analysis, grounded theory, case study, discourse conversation analysis, and the mixed methods. Next. We have the theories in qualitative for reference of the study or theoretical lens. We have what they call the first one is post-positivism or the grounded theory. It is reductionistic, logical, empirical, cause and effect oriented, and deterministic based on a priori theories. It does not believe in strict cause and effect, but rather recognize that all cause and effect is a probability that may or may not occur. We have the social constructivism, or what we have, the phenomenology. Our dear speakers will talk on this more. Next, we have the transformative framework or the participatory action research. I think in the Department of Education, all teachers are encouraged to write or to make action researches. So here the knowledge is not neutral and it reflects the power of social relationships within society. Thus, the purpose of knowledge construction is to aid people to improve society. That is the purpose of participatory action research. Then we have the postmodernism, ethnography, and narrative. Our dear speakers will talk on this later. Then we have the pragmatism, phenomenology, or the mixed methods. Individuals holding an interpretive framework based on actions, situations, and consequences of inquiry, rather than antecedent conditions. Individual researchers have a freedom of choice. They are to choose the methods, techniques, and procedures of research that best meet their needs and purposes. Then we have the feminist theories. Okay, as what I have said, our speakers will talk on this more. Then we have the critical theory and critical race theory, case study, ethnography. Our speakers will talk on this more later. So, exploring the scientific study of social institutions and their transformations through interpreting the meanings of social life, the historical problems of domination, alienation, and social struggles, and a critique of society and the envisioning of new possibilities. We have that one already. Then we have the Kerr theory. It's a combination of these four. And we have the disability theories or the case studies. Then designing qualitative study. When we design and we plan for a qualitative study, when we want to conduct, we should remember this. Qualitative researchers need to anticipate and plan for potential ethical issues because these issues arise during many phases of the research process. Qualitative research begins with assumptions and the use of interpretive theoretical frameworks that inform the study of research problems, addressing the meaning individuals or groups ascribe to a social or human problem. Qualitative researchers use an emerging qualitative approach to inquiry, the collection of data in a natural setting sensitive to the people and places under study, and data analysis that is both inductive and deductive establishes patterns or themes. We have here in conducting a qualitative research, naturally as what I have said, we will start with our research title. And then from the research title, we will continue with our philosophical assumptions, developing central question, collecting and transcribing data, coding and analyzing the data, and thematizing and creating simulacra. In details, we have here a sample. Okay, how will we do it? We have a sample here. By the way, this study uses one, that is the mixed method. Okay, one of the under qualitative is the mixed method, right? So we have here a sample title, Resilience is the Key, Surviving the Challenges of COVID-19 in Philippine Schools Overseas, Convergent Mixed Methods Design. So we have here the central question, how do O's stands for Philippine Schools Overseas survive the challenges of COVID-19? That's your central question. Then the sub-questions, breaking central question into specific questions. What modes of survival do PSOs manifest in facing the challenges of COVID-19? And then we have the developmental questions. You need to formulate questions based from sub-questions, at least 25 questions from it. And then we have another example is, what if your study is on Filipino volunteerism in diaspora? So you have the central question, what characterizes Filipino volunteerism in diaspora? Some questions, the breaking of CQ into specific questions. How do Filipinos acquire the attributes of Filipino volunteerism? For the developmental questions, again, you are going to formulate questions based from sub-questions, at least 25 questions. Now let's proceed to collecting and transcribing data. So after you gather, after you have your research title, you have your assumptions, now you are in the collecting and transcription of data. You have here corpus data refer to the collection of multi-data references for analysis. And then we have the written consent by Arkley and Knight in 1999 are protocols before starting the interview. And then we have the robot photo according to Kels Shermans and Ballet 2002, a Dutch term, the photo-like picture drawn from a witness description of a suspect in a criminal case. So and then we have the semi-structured interview. It's a face-to-face interview with the participant, with the researcher. Then we have the script interview to build ease and friendliness with the participants. And the developmental interview, the start of throwing purposeful questions to participants. All of this are under the collecting and transcribing of data processes. Then we have, when we are going to ask how many are in the sampling design. For sampling, an important step in the research process in both quantitative and qualitative studies. Researchers must decide the number of participants to select and how to select these sample members. In the sampling aspect, we have the random sampling for quantitative paradigm, non-random sampling for qualitative. We have here different facts about the samplings and their scheme description. So we know already what to use at its proper time. Then we have here the continuation of this. Okay, we have this different samples. I will not focus on this. Now in the sampling design, we should have this. We should remember this. Misnomer. Sampling schemes is always associated with qualitative research and large sample being linked to quantitative. But small samples can be used in quantitative research that represents exploratory research or basic research. We have here, for each research design or method, there is a minimum sample size suggestion. So if you want to have correlational example, 84 participants for one-tailed hypothesis, and then we have so and so forth. For case study, 3 to 5 participants according to Creswell. Phenomenological, our speaker will talk more on this. Now I have this with me I retrieved this for the PowerPoint presentation of Dr. Amy S. Acosta this year. The qualitative sampling. Okay. So qualitative research sampling is simply the purposeful selection of a sample of participants who can best help the investigator understand the central phenomenon being explored. Purposeful sampling strategies, we have here maximal variation sampling, critical sampling, snowball sampling, and confirming, disconfirming sampling. In general, we have in qualitative sampling, the traditional stance or on size is not to specify a size, but to consider size as a function of when saturation occurs in a study. Saturation is the point in data collection when the researcher gathers data from several participants and the collection of data from new participants does not add substantially to the codes or themes being developed. At this point, the researcher stops collecting the data. That is when you say saturation, when almost all the answers of the participants that you have interviewed, and then you think you want to add more, but since the saturation level is met, so it's a signal that you will stop touch interview. Or in a few number of participants, when the same answer uh, of all participants will be coming out and the same thing, then it is a sign again that some saturation level is met. So, in qualitative sampling, purposely select participants who can best help you understand the central phenomenon that you are exploring. So we have here below, I think, our next speakers will talk on this, on the suggestion sample size. Then we have, as what I have said a while ago, each research design has a minimum sample size suggestion. You will know further on this to our next speakers. Number of respondents, compendium of stories is not the highlight of phenomenology, but the common life experiences of the affected lived world of the individual. Minimum of 3 to a maximum of 13 to 20 respondents in a qualitative research. For data transcription, how to transcribe data? We have the emic and the ethic. Emic means from the respondent's point of view. Ethic means from the researcher's naive understanding of responses. And how will you analyze data? You have here the cool analysis and the warm analysis. When you say cool analysis, raw attempt of analyzing the data. And when you say warm analysis, exhaustion of data analysis where themes may emerge. So from there, themes come out. We have here some further explanation. EMIC from the respondent's point of view, analysis of cultural phenomena from the perspective of the participants. Example, we have this. Sasabihin ko sa iyo, sir, na isa sa mga considerations of terminating staff aside from being a low-performing teacher is the capability na ma-employ siya sa other establishment. It is hurting that of going abroad. This is an example of EMIC from the respondent's point of view. Next, we have example for ethic from the researcher's naive understanding of the responses. We have here, as much as possible, I want to take my family as if I encouraged my wife to volunteer too. This is a study on volunteerism. Next, we have the procedures in quantitative and qualitative data analysis and interpretation. I think I had already spoken these matters. So, may I just focus on the qualitative data analysis procedures. You have to transcribe the data, check transcripts for accuracy, organize the data by data type, participants, or case, then format the data to facilitate the data analysis. Read through the data to obtain a sense of it all and write memos about initial thoughts. Develop your initial codes and develop a qualitative code book only appropriate for some projects. So we have here still the same. Then this, I have with me here a diagram. What if you have the mixed method analysis? I will focus on the qualitative interview study. So you have here sample in the qualitative interview study. Patients who have completed evaluations through the and have participated in the survey study. Then you have the data source and the outcomes. So this is only a sample, a sample of a data presentation. Then one more, you can present your qualitative findings in a mixed method in this way. So this is only, I will focus again on the presentation of qualitative findings. It goes like this. I think I tended to kind of springboard of number 5 in the middle. Like I would read this statement and I would say, what's like halfway? With 1 being I do not really agree at all, and 5 would be I'm not really one way or the other. And so, if I know that I agree with, that I would start at 5 and my new scale would be a 5-10 instead, a 1 to 10. So then I would think about how much do I agree with that. So most everything except for number 12 was on the agreement side of the scale 6 to 10. That is only an example on how will you present qualitative findings. So in the results section, so you can also have like this. So for a mixed method, so I will focus on the qualitative findings. The phenomenological interviews corroborated that teachers and school administrators were worried of the situation. This is already from the thematic analysis, from the data gathering and analysis of the qualitative data that you got. We have here in data analysis, we have also code. Researcher-generated construct that symbolize or translate data. Primarily, but not exclusively, used to retrieve data to categorize similar things. So we have here types of codes, descriptive codes, in vivo coding, process coding, concept coding, emotion coding, holistic coding. When you want to deal more on qualitative research data, you will know more on the example of each coding. Then we have the types of code, as what I have said, data that summarized in a word or phrase. That is the descriptive code. Okay, this is not a sample. For second cycle data analysis, we have the inductive, deductive analysis, and thematization. These are the samples or the steps. And how to analyze the data, the one I had already read a while ago. So, in general, if you have the study using the mixed method, then specifically on the qualitative research, so you can have like this diagram. Anyways, our organizer for this webinar will be sharing these handouts or digital handouts to all of you. So since I only have 20 minutes for the lecture, so I will just let you read this silently for a few seconds. So for data validation, we have what we call, when in a qualitative research, just like in quantity, we need to validate the data that we have gathered. And we have what we call here member checking procedure. So that is to ensure validity and data trustworthiness. Verifying objective analysis of data through triangulation or quadrangulation. So we have here sample individual forms to your respondents, right? So So I have your first column questions, responses, members' perspective. In the summary form, you have here the questions for each question. What's the response of member one? What's the response of member two? And so on and so forth, and generate the remarks. Okay? We have this data validation form that is to eliminate subjectivity. The same force, verifying objective analysis of data through focus group discussion. As what we know, that one of the methods in gathering the data in qualitative research is FGD, meaning focus group discussion. Why? And then one thing that we should remember, why conceptual framework is not essential in qualitative research. Unlike in quantitative, it is essential. Why? Because researchers in qualitative often do not make the theoretical or conceptual frameworks of studies explicit, simply that they are embedded in the literature review. That's according to Pollitt and Catano Beck and other writers. The second reason, because it is reflexive, not reflective. Reflexivity is a critical approach that problematizes the entity users to understudy. The entity understudy, it is the ability to be suspicious of our own assumptions. Moreover, it is because it is methodological approach, not statistical, that is based on a specific epistemology, ontology, axiology, or philosophy of knowledge that cannot presume predictability. An inductive method in which theory generation comes from the data called emergent themes and not from a statistical data. So here are the references. I got this from the presentation of Dr. Aimee Acosta, year 2021, and all their references. Much as I want to explain further, the time does not allow me. So, my dear participants, for this webinar this morning, I would say thank you, salamat, and God bless. May you have learned something on the overview of qualitative research. God bless everyone. May I stop sharing?
Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for that very informative things no, that you have imparted to us. So again, qualitative research, so as far as I remember, okay, it is a type of social science research that collects and works with non-numerical data. Okay, that consists of open-minded information that the researcher usually gathers through interviews, focus groups, and observations. So the analysis of the qualitative data, okay, typically follows the path of aggregating it into categories of information and presenting the diversity of ideas gathered during data collection. Okay, so thank you so much, sir, for that very informative things that you have imparted to us. Yan. Clap naman kayo dyan. Virtual clap naman tayo para kay Sir Baltimore. Ayan. Very comprehensive, sir. Congratulations. That is according to
Thank you.
Sir
Thank you.
Jonathan. Ayan. Okay. Let's proceed. Andyan pa ba kayo? Okay pa ba? Ayan, di ba? Maganda ang ano natin, ano, nakakatulong talaga. So to learn more about qualitative research, our next speaker will discuss or share with us one of the steps in conducting qualitative research, which is phenomenology. Okay, our speaker graduated from MSU Jensen with a Bachelor of Arts major in Political Science. He also earned his master's degree at the same school, taking a Master of Arts in Education. He also handled some administrative coordinatorship, such as National Drug Education Program, School Research Coordinator, Araling Panlipunan Coordinator, Gulayan sa Paaralan Program Coordinator, and School Improvement Plan. So he has 10 years of teaching experience and currently he is a teacher 3 at Eudoro P. Prudente National High School. Now please help me welcome our speaker, Mr. Isagane Zolina. Okay, sir. Okay, so while Sir Isagani is presenting, okay, you can actually use our chat box for some queries or questions, no, and reactions, okay, regarding the topic. So thank you so much. Okay. Ayan na si Sir Isagani.
Ano? Lagi. Hindi siya ano. Hello?
Yes, sir. We can hear you,
Sandali
sir.
lang po, ma'am.
Apo.
May inaayos lang po. Sandali lang po.
Okay lang po. Take your time, sir.
Ito. Hello?
Yes, sir. We can hear you
Okay.
po.
Okay na po. Pasensya, medyo nagka-problema.
Nag-echo lang po, sir. Dalawang audio siguro yung na-open.
Okay. Okay, good morning,
Morning.
participants. So I am tasked to discuss to you, okay, one of the qualitative approach, which is phenomenology. Okay, let me start with this question. Okay, when we say phenomenology, when a researcher attempts to gain insights into a universal feeling or experience or phenomena, hello? Hindi ba? Wala lagi.
Hindi lang, sir. Ano naman po? Audible, loud and clear naman po.
Marinig na po.
Opo.
Oo, medyo problema talaga. Hello, Sir Jonathan.
Sir?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yung problema, sir ba, nag-ano?
Nag-ano siya, sir?
Okay naman po yung presentation.
Makadungog mo na.
Ano pa ang slide mo? Nag-ano?
Makita ko yung slide, ma'am.
Yes po.
Okay, okay
Clear
lang.
lang siya, sir. Okay lang siya, sir.
Okay. Okay ang slide.
Opo.
Nagagamit kasi ako ng cellphone kasi may problema yung laptop.
Okay lang, sir. Kitang-kita naman po.
Okay, sige. Okay, pasensya na po. Medyo kinakabahan. Okay, once again, good morning. So I am
Morning.
tasked to discuss one of the qualitative research approach, which is phenomenology, which was slightly discussed by the previous speaker, Sir Judy Baltimore. But this time, uh, I'll make it more specific. So let's start with the definition of what is phenomenology. Of course, this word phenomenology came from the root word phenomenon. When we say phenomenon, we are talking about events, uh, phenomenon or problems experienced by individual in life. So when our researchers attempt to gain insights about into a universal feeling or experience about phenomena or events in life, then most likely he or she wanted to engage in a phenomenological research. Another definition by Creswell, 2013, Creswell defined phenomenology as an approach that describes the common meaning for several individuals of their lived experiences of a particular concept or phenomenon. So the word being highlighted here is live. So when we're talking about lived experiences, if we wanted to delve with this kind of phenomenon, for example, the lived experiences of COVID-19 survivor in this pandemic, then most likely your research is anchored on this kind of qualitative research. That is according to Creswell. You wanted to delve more on in detailed or in depth about the experience, how the people give meaning to their experience, events in life, why is that happening? So how they give meaning. Another definition in a phenomenological research, a researcher focused to describe the commonalities among the participants as they experience the phenomenon. Just like the previous speaker said, that after conducting an interview in a phenomenological research, so we will find out what are the common things that the participants shared. So what are their experiences in common? According to Sokolowski, 2000, he describes that the study of human, defined phenomenology as the study of human experience and of the ways things present themselves to us in and through such experience. In addition to this, Smith in 2008 defined phenomenology as the study of structures of consciousness as experience from the first person point of view. So Smith highlighted the term consciousness, which means that human being viewed his experience as regards to his level of consciousness. According to Van Manner in 1990, this is a grasp of the very nature of the things, no? According to him, the essence of doing phenomenology is to reduce individual experiences with a phenomenon to the description of a universal essence. So accordingly, according to Van Manner, this is the grasp of the very nature of the thing. In Mostakas in 1994, purely described that in this type of approach that a researcher should identify first what are the first identify the phenomenon, second collects data from several individuals or persons, and lastly develops a composite description of the essence of the experience for all the individual.
Excuse me, Sir Isagani, hindi po nagmo-move yung slides po natin.
Sorry. Ma'am Ann, hindi na nag-move. Hindi nag-move ang slide.
Ayan po, ang lumabas po na slide is, wala na.
Wala, ma'am.
Nawala na po. Kanina may lumabas yung number 10 na slides.
Stop sharing.
Page 10, opo.
Sandali lang, ma'am. Stop sharing ko pa, ma'am. Ha? Dahil lang. Ay, hindi. Sa ano pa? Sige pa. Sige pa. Para ano. Okay. Okay na, ma'am. Hello.
O sir, opo, andito na po.
Pasensya, may technology glitch. Okay, Mustakas in 1994 purely described that in this type of approach, in phenomenological approach, our researchers first have to identify a phenomenon. Second, collects data from several individuals or persons and develops a composite description of the essence of the experience for all the individual. Mustakas in 1994 purely described that in this kind of qualitative approach, a researcher should, okay, naulit ko. Okay, there are two approaches in qualitative, in phenomenological research. The first one is transcendental or psychological phenomenology. The second one is hermeneutic phenomenology. So we will discuss these two in details. First is the transcendental or psychological phenomenology. Transcendental or psychological phenomenology focused on the description of the participants' experiences and less on the interpretation of the researchers. That is according to Mustakas 1994. In this kind of research approach, there is what we call bracketing or epoche, wherein the researcher should set aside his or her experiences as much as possible to take fresh perspective toward the phenomenon under investigation. So to avoid bias in doing this kind of research, we need the so-called bracketing. We need to place ourselves as a researcher so as not to contaminate the result of the study. Transcendental connotes that everything is perceived freshly as if for the first time. According to Colizzi and Van Kam, data analysis, this kind of research is anchored on the data analysis procedure of Colizzi of 1978 and Van Kam of 1966. Another kind of phenomenological research or approach is the hermeneutic phenomenology. This is derived from the word hermeneuin, meaning to interpret. This means that a researcher describes a research as oriented toward lived experiences and interpreting the text of life. That is according to Van Manen of 1990. Accordingly, hermeneutics phenomenology is not only a description. It is also an interpretive process in which the researcher makes an interpretation of the meaning of the lived experiences. Take note that every encounter in this kind of research involves an interpretation that is influenced by an individual's background. So this time, I will discuss to you some of the process of a phenomenological research study. First, we need to identify the phenomenon or experience to explore. Say, for example, if you wanted to conduct a study on the lived experience of the students engaged in modular distance learning, so you need to do this first. You have to identify the phenomenon, the event, the tragedy in the life of a person. Second, a researcher must develop research questions that are particular to the phenomenon at the focus of investigation. So we have to consider the following factors in development of research questions. First, we need to know what are the necessary constituents of this feeling or experience. Second, what does the existence of this feeling or experience indicate concerning the nature of the human being? Third, the initial inquiry by the researcher seeks individuals willing to describe their experiences with the phenomenon in questions. Fourth, the individual participants need to understand and voluntarily express their innermost feelings and describe any physiological or psychological experiences that occur with the feelings. Number five, okay, collection of data from participants who have experienced the phenomenon. Of course, this is accomplished by means of observations, interactive interviews, videotapes, and written descriptions by the subject participants. Number six, development and composite descriptions of the essence of the experience by all of the individual participants, what they experience and how they experience the phenomenon. Number seven, in most instances, data is collected through in-depth interactive conversation between the researcher and the participant. It is at this very starting point of data collection that the analysis begins. So this analysis will help guide the decision-making process of the researcher as it relates to all further data collected. Number eight, from the analyzed data collected, the researcher attaches meaning to the data collected and is expressed in terms of phenomenological philosophy. Number nine, the outcome of the analysis is a theoretical statement responding to the original research questions. Number 10, the statement is validated by examples of the data, which are often direct quotes from the individual participants of, we have the term, the, the, the epic, I mean. And number 11, from all of this, it is hoped that the common experiences of the participants through the structural and textural descriptions and the inevitable composite description of the researcher will present the core of the phenomenon or the essential invariant structure or essence. And lastly, from all that has occurred, and what the researcher now presents as the essence of the combined mass experience, the reader should be able to say to themselves, yes, I can see that. I understand now. Oh, I see. Or that really makes sense. The reader has has experienced the point of new understanding through the gain of new knowledge and learning. So the reader now has experienced the so-called Gestalt moment. Okay, so that's end my presentation. Thank you for listening. Pasensya na po pero nagka-problema po tayo ha. Hello.
Yes, sir. Okay lang po, sir. At least nairaos po natin.
Ang
Ayan.
hirap ng ano dito ba, medyo busy kami kasi eh.
Okay
Pasensya
lang,
po.
sir. And thank you for the
Thank you
time,
so much
sir. Thank you,
for
sir.
listening.
Yeah. So I hope that everybody, gain some informative information regarding the topic given to us by Sir Isa Ganezolina. Okay. Ayan. So, andyan pa ba? Pwede pa ba mag-heart or mag-raise ng hand yung mga nandito pa na talagang, eager still to listen. Ayan, meron ng mga nag-heart. Thank you so much. By the way, all of us, all the participants will have their certificate of participation afterward to be a soft copy to be sent in your email address according to Sir Jonathan. Ayan. So thank you. Andyan pa sila. So let's proceed, no? This is not yet ended because our next speaker will give us information regarding the other step in conducting this qualitative or qualitative research, which is about oral historiography. He is a good man, simple yet very compassionate and passionate, especially to his task. For me, he could be the future campus director at SKSU-Palimbang campus. He is from the Department of Education too, but transferred to HEI in the year 2017. Ayan po, sabay kami. He is also engaged in many activities and handled many coordinatorship during his stay in the Department of Education. He has been teaching for 9 years already. Currently, he is the BEd chairperson. Ayan, no? Chairperson pa lang yan siya ngayon. Pero eventually, magiging campus director na yan siya. IQA coordinator and document controller officer at the Palimbang campus. He was also awarded, ito, nakaka-proud, as the Outstanding Faculty of the Year 2020, if I'm not mistaken. He is also a research enthusiast. Kaya nga, nagkaano talaga siya ng research. And now, ang dami ko pwedeng sabihin sa kanya, pero let me now welcome Mr. the future Dr. Mr. Jonathan P. Roque. A virtual applause. And Sergio. Sir Jonathan? Nakamute ka, Sir Jo.
Wait lang po, ma'am. Wait lang.
Kaganda pa naman ang intro.
Screen. Makita na, ma'am Jo.
Wala akong makita siya as Sir
Screen.
Jo. Share screen, wala. I don't know sa iba.
Here na.
Nadala, wala. Okay, ayan na Sir Jo. Starting na. Okay.
Alright. Once again, good morning, everyone. I am going to talk with the oral historiography as my task in this webinar. And before that, there is a saying that 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 sometimes you may hear in which it says that anong kwenta ng kwenta mo. For those who are engaged so much in talking and talking and talking, what is the kwenta of your story? So in this oral historiography as part of one of the qualitative research design, we are going to have a good sense about our story. So, by the way, if we are going to ask about the history, what really comes to your mind? So, during our high school, we have our history o yung kasaysayan. At ito ay sometimes we ask why we study history. So, for me, history is the basis of everything. So, it could either be basis for information for the present. It could either be a basis for integration, or sometimes sinasabi ng ibang tao, mahalaga ang kasaysayan dahil maitutuwid natin ang kung ano yung mali at ito'y maitatama natin for the present and for the future. But in oral history, it's a field of study and a method of gathering, preserving, and interpreting the voices and memories of people, the communities, and participants in past events. Why people, why communities, and why other participants in the past events? Because they are our, in this design, they are our primary sources of information. So, oral history is both the oldest type of historical inquiry, predating the written word, and one of the most modern, initiated with tape recorders during 1940s pa. And now, using the 21st century digital technologies, we have the camera, we have the cell phone with high definition features. So before, cassette, voice recorder ang ginagamit, but now we can have the audio and the visual. So why why we do it? Why we must conduct oral history? So first, sinasabi dito, we must conduct oral history to help round out the story of the past. So in this importance, we come up with a more and accurate or more accurate picture of the past by augmenting the information provided by public records. So we validate through oral history the statistical data, the photographs, the maps, or the letters, diaries, and other historical materials. So, who are our respondents here? Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina, those person or participants in the past who really experience those events. So, nandun sila mismo. So, eyewitnesses to events contribute various viewpoints and perspectives that fill in the gaps in documented history. Remember, as Sir Judy mentioned a while ago, that in conducting research, we must always consider the gaps. Okay? We must consider the gaps. And sometimes correcting or even contradicting the written record. There are some instances kung bakit mayroong mga hindi nasulat doon sa aklat. It's because there are some people who really controls the history. So as you can see, we have many propagandas now in the internet about Marcos, about Marcos, about Aquino, and etc. So interviewers are able to ask questions left out of the other records, and to interview may serve as the only source of information available about a certain place, event, or a person. So that's the reason why oral history round out the story of the past. The second one is oral history helps us understand how individuals and communities experience the forces of history. So just think of the breadth and width of history and that today's students have to learn. Di ba napakaiksi? There are sometimes mali pa yung information na nakalagay sa aklat. There are sometimes puro good ang nakalagay. There are sometimes hindi natin alam kung totoong nangyari o hindi. So traditional history courses in high school and colleges usually touch only on the major events of the past. So we have also the minor events, which is sometimes naiiwan at hindi nasasama doon sa mga aklat na dapat malaman din ng mga bata. So in here, oral history brings to our understanding of the past by carrying us into experience at an individual level. So thoughtful personal answer to questions like what did you do during war, or what did you do during the martial law? Since my topic or our proposal or our yes, we have the proposal later. I'm going to share with you. It's all about the martial law. So um, we have here also the third oral history teaches us what has changed and what has stayed the same over time. So take note of the word change. Take note of the word change. Change is obvious to the eye, but oral history allows people to express personal consequences of change from simple things of life. Uh, Say, for example, wood stove to microwave, dial phone to cell phone, uh, phonograph to iPad, or to more complex, the yellow dog in the other countries, yellow dog Democrat to moral majority, local production to global. Those are uh, manifestations of the changes. Okay. Number four, we have oral history preserves for future generations a sound portrait of who we are in the present and what we remember about the past. Future generation will view and judge today's generation through the lens of their own experiences in their own time. And the story of the past is continually revised in the light of new interpretations. And oral history or oral historiography enables people to share their stories in their own words with their own voices. So, yun po yung why we must conduct oral historiography. And also, in doing the oral history, it explains that oral history collects memories and personal commentaries of historical significance through recorded interviews. As I mentioned a while ago, before, um, kinakailangan natin, we need evidence, and our major and primary respondents or participants in this design is those people who really experience in that kind of event. And through records, it could either be audio and the visual. It can pwede siyang mangyari. Okay? And an oral history interview generally consists of a well-prepared interviewer questioning an interviewee and recording their exchange in audio or video format. As I was saying a while ago. And recording of the interview are transcribed, summarized, or indexed and then placed in a library or archives. So one of the most common steps in qualitative research is yung transcription, the analysis. So we transcribe the interview, okay? And then later, that is the basis in coming up the conclusion. And place later in a library or archives. So these interviews may be used for research or accepted in a publication, radio or video documentary, museum exhibition, dramatization, or other form of public presentation. So our study later is really in the museum. So meron na po siyang parang ano doon, parang pictures of what happened during the martial law.
Yes,
So
Sir Joe.
yes,
There are participants who are raising their hand. Maybe may mga ano po sila,
may mga
may mga queries po siguro or clarification.
yes, sige. Ano, kagaya ng
Ni Ma'am Charmy Salcedo and Ma'am Mary Grace. They're raising their hands. Yes po.
sige.
Sir, hindi po nag-move yung inyong ano sir, slides.
Ha? Alright,
Hindi
wait
po
lang.
nag-move yung slides.
How about that? Okay na po?
Slide number 5 done, I think.
Yan. Okay na?
Okay, okay. Sige, proceed.
Recordings, transcripts, catalogs, photographs, and related documentary materials can be also posted on the internet. So, sometimes, yun nga ang sinasabi ko kanina, through the use of this internet, some stories are revealed. So, those are stories wherein hindi siya nasali. For example, in the curriculum, in the books, because there is a story before why napaiba-iba. We have the Civica, di ba? Civica at kultura hanggang sa naging ano na lang siya, araling panlipunan, mga ganon. So because there is a manpower who controls the publication of the stories. So parang lahat ng mga publishing house before, parang kinontrol nila na ito lang dapat yung lalabas na mga story. At ito lang dapat ang maibigay o yes, mailagay doon sa mga books. Parang ganon. So, oral history does not include random typing. Yung mga random typing, nor does it refer to recorded speeches. Yung mga speeches, for example, ni Marcos, hindi po yan kasali. Wiretapping, I mean, we have also personal diaries on tape, hindi po yan sa kasali. Or other sound recordings that lack the dialogue between interviewee and interviewer. So, here in the oral history, there is always presence of interviewer and the interviewee. For the sequence on the oral history research, first is you must conduct or you must have the formulation of a central question or issue. What is the question? What leads you to this research? Say for example, during martial law, who are those victims? Why there is a need for reparation, parang ganon. So you formulate first some questions, and the second is plan the project. In planning the project, it is very important to consider such things. So for example, what is the output? What will be the output of your research, and who will fund the budget, the publicity, and who will evaluate, and also who will be involved, the personnel, and what will be used, the equipment, and hanggang kailan matatapos, which is the time frames. And also conduct background research. So in formulating, sa pag-formulate mo pa lang ng questions, doon na kaagad you have the initial research about your topic, and then interview and process interviews, and also evaluate research and interviews, and cycle back to step 1 or go to step 7. Organize and present the results and store materials archivally. So those are the 7 steps. 7 ba siya? 2, 4, 8. 8 steps in conducting oral history. And kung gusto po ninyo na madalian, ito lang po yung ating tatandaan. You have the plan, you have the questions, you have the plan, you have these resources para mas maganda yung inyong output. And we have many reminders in conducting the oral history. So, kagaya ng sinabi ko kanina, determine or decide the goal of the oral history, because it will help you reach them, and you may find that your goals change and do however focus. So conduct prelim research using non-oral sources. Ibig sabihin, pag non-oral, you conduct yung readings. Pag oral kasi, this is in the form of interview. Define also your population sample. Kanina nabanggit ni Sir Judy na in conducting oral history, although hindi siya talaga oral history nakalagay doon, but at least 10. Okay? 10. And how will you select the people? As I mentioned a while ago, you select them in which sila talaga yung mismong nandoon sa pangyayari. And very careful in choosing those respondents kasi sometimes hindi sila nagsasabi ng totoo or mali-mali yung kanilang mga sinasabi. And you will evaluate that later with some other interviewee. And also assemble your equipment to fit your purposes. So assemble your equipment. You have the camera, you have the video, okay, and everything. And also use an external microphone for better sound quality. And this also applies to video. There are sometimes na merong mga meron tayong equipment in which nare-reduce yung noise. So test your equipment beforehand and get to know how it works under various conditions, and also practice before going to the real interview. If you're going to use the audio cassette taping, make sure that the maximum time for a tape is 60 minutes. 60 minutes. And also compile a list of topics or questions. And here, kailangan na mayroon na kayong initial questions before conducting the real interview para mayroong direction yung inyong interview. Hindi siya yung hindi rin siya yung parang pataas, then baba naman, pataas, baba. So, one direction lang dapat siya hanggang sa matapos. Practice interviewing. And also make personal checklist of things you must remember to do before, during, and after the interview. So, dapat merong in charge in a team para ma-identify kung ano pa yung kulang sa pag-conduct ng oral history. And also, itong pinaka-importante, verify your appointment a day or 2 days before the interview. So, baka naman pagdating nyo doon sa field ay busy yung iyong mga respondents. So, verify mo muna yung kanilang availability. And also, on the day of the interview, give yourself extra time to get there. Wala ka dapat iniisip, dapat ikaw ay nakafocus. And also, interview and record in a quiet place. So, maghanap po kayo, mag-set up po kayo ng isang lugar na kung saan walang ingay na maririnig. Okay? And also make sure the interview understands the purpose of the interview, and the interview, understand the purpose of the interview and how you intend to use it, because this is not a private conversation. So dapat alam ng interviewee kung ano talaga yung goal niyo, kung ano yung purpose, why you conduct this interview, para hindi sila mahiya na mag-share yung mga naririnig mo. Beyond that, meron pa palang nakatago. Hindi sila mahihiya. And also, marami pang iba. Okay? So, start each recording with a statement of who, what, when, and where you are interviewing. So, statement who. So, dapat yung sa pagtanong natin, yung dahan-dahan muna. Medyo, ang isipin natin is from lower thinking na mga tanong going to higher thinking. And also, listen and actively and intently. Yan ang isang rason why you conduct the oral history, is to listen to their story. And also speak one at a time. So allow also silence, ask one question at a time. Follow up your current questions thoroughly before moving to the next if you have some clarifications pa. And also usually ask questions open enough to get easy answers, unless you're looking for a specific short answer or the fact. So, dapat hindi lang siya puro yung isang tanong, isang sagot, hindi. Dapat may paliwanag niya ng maayos. Okay? Unless kung yung exact ang hinahanap mo, then you can ask. Start with less probing questions, yung sabi ko kanina, and ask more probing questions later in the interview. Be aware of the sensitive to the psychology forces at work during the interview. Ito din, titingnan din natin yung condition or yung atmosphere. Kung okay lang ba na sa lugar na yon magkakandak, or okay lang ba na sa lugar na yon ay magtatanong ka, parang because you are interviewing the interviewer, dadalhin mo siya sa nakaraan. So, tingnan mo din yung kanyang emosyon. Okay? Yung mga sensitive na emotion niya, baka naman hindi na siya makasalita at iiyak na siya kasi naalala niya yung kahapon. So, be aware of that. And also, limit interviews to about 1 to 2 hours. Yan siya, 1 to 2 hours. And also, don't count on photos to structure your interview, but you can use them in initial prompts. And also, after the interview, label and number all recordings immediately. Have the interviewee sign the release form para naman meron kang consent na pumapayag sila na gagamitin yung interview na yon in the study. And also, after the interview, make field notes about the interview. Dapat meron ka ding mga notes. And write a thank you note. Isa din sa mahalaga. And have a system to label and file everything. You must do it. Copy borrowed photos immediately and return the originals. Baka naman mayroong sentimental value itong mga photos sa kanila. So, dapat ibalik mo talaga yung original if ever you borrow. And yan. Copy its interview tape, transcribe, and then analyze the interview. Go back for another interview if necessary. Pag meron kang mga tanong na na-miss, you can go back for another interview. You can set another schedule to really find the purpose or the goal of interview. Kasi pag nakulangan ka, you can set another schedule. If you decide to or give the interview a copy, you can do it. And then, make provisions for a long-term storage. So, dapat merong provision kung saan nyo siya itatago for long-term storage. Dapat hindi po siya makita because sa interview, say for example, ang mga topic ay very sensitive, dapat po classified po yan siya. And ito po, yung isang question, how do I ask the question? Paano ba ako magtanong? As my experience before, kasi ako na tao ay hindi ako madada, hindi ako mahilig makipag-usap, and I prefer to listen. Kasi para sa akin mas natututo ako pag ako'y nakikinig. Parang ganun ba? Parang ganun na scenario. But in this design, you must learn how to ask questions. As teachers, alam natin itong art of questioning, di ba? So, i-apply lang natin dito kung ano yung mga natutunan natin on how are we going to ask questions. So, ito, number 1, actually marami, 13 ito eh. Okay, number 1, we have a list of topics in mind. Not specific questions, but a topic, word for word, and not specific sequence. And also, do plan the topic and form your first substantial question after settling down phase. As question that will prompt a long answer and get the subject going. So, pag nagpo-formulate ka ng question, titingnan mo dito, ano ba yung gusto mong sagot? Ano ba yung in-expect mo na sagot niya if you ask this question? Pag ito yung tanong ko, ano kaya yung kanyang isasagot? So, yan siya. Number 3, we have asked easy questions first. Sabi ko kanina, dandahanin mo lang siyang tanungin hanggang sa mahihirap na mga tanong. Ask questions one at a time. Isa-isa lang po yung tanong mo. And then, allow silence to work for you. Say, for example, parang nakikita mo siya na nahihirapan na, so, you can pause. So, for example, umiiyak na siya, hindi na siya makasalita, you can pause. And be a good listener. Kaya na sinabi ko kanina, be a good listener and makikita yan siya by ng interview at ma-feel niya na ikaw ay interesado by nodding head, smile, by giving smile, mga ganun. And then 7, if necessary, use verbal encouragement such as this wonderful information. How interesting. So be careful, however, not to pepper the interview with the verbal encouragement such as, sabihin mo, and then also, ask for specific examples if the interview make a general statement and you need to know more, or you might say, I don't understand. Could you elaborate? Could you give me some details of this? Mga ganun na tanong. And also, ask more definitions and explanations. Kagaya na lamang ng mga terms na hindi mo alam. So, pwede mo siyang tanungin kung hindi mo talaga alam yung mga terms na kanyang ginagamit. You can ask for any clarification. Rephrase and re-ask important questions pag hindi ito na intindihan ng iyong interviewee. And also, unless you want a one-word answer, kagaya ng sabi kanina, yes or no, pero ang inaano natin dito for the facts is yes or no. Hindi pala. For the facts is yung specific na natanong. So for example, mga dates, mga ganun siya. And also, ask follow-up questions and then ask some more. And also, be flexible. Sometimes, may mga interviewee na according sa aming professor, parang siya na yung bida. Okay? Siya na yung bida at dapat ikaw na interviewer ay hindi ka dapat lalamunin ng interviewee sa pagkandak ng oral history. So, dapat ikaw pa rin ang nag-drive. And also, in analyzing the oral history, meron siyang 4 lang na level. And una dito is collecting prior yung preparation kanina binanggit ko. Ito na yung pag-analyze. Collect the oral testimonies after the interview. And then portraits of meanings, yung mga biographies. And then seeds of meaning, yung ano ba yung mga importanteng mga points sa interview. And then collective meaning, ito na yung tinatawag nating historiography. And based on my experience, kasi we have this approved project in coordination with the Human Rights Victims Violation Memorial Commission or the MEMCOM, and the University of the Philippines, Diliman History Department, and SKSU-Palimbang campus, we come up with this very interesting, unhidden, unforgotten memories from Palimbang, entitled Takbil Most Palimbang Massacre, an Oral Historiography. Pag makita nyo sa YouTube, you can type Palimbang Most Massacre. Makita nyo doon yung mga previous na mga kinandak, especially yung Commission on Higher. I mean yung Human Rights, Commission on Human Rights. Makikita nyo doon yung mga, kung paano din sila magkandak itong oral historiography. So, first, kami, since ako ay before nakapokus sa quantitative, so nag-request kami in the person of ito, yung si Sir. Ito yung director ng MEMCOM or the HRBVMC in the person of Sir Crisanto Carmelo. We request for a training conducted in Rizal. Okay? This is our field coordinator, and because of her ay nagkaroon kami ng chance na mag-conduct ng research kasi siya talaga yung tulay. Ito si Ma'am Miriam Kanda, a former Sangguniang member of Palimbang campus. Ito po siya, yung naka-blue. And then our campus director, no other than Hubayda A. Mamalinta, and my colleague si Dr. Anira Yusuf, and from the UP department, si Sir Biernes. Yan siya. And as you can see, prior to the interview, we visited the location wherein the massacre happened. Makikita ninyo yung mga bato. Pag ito tong mga batong ito. Yan. Kung gaano kadami yung bato na nandyan na nakikita ninyo at meron pa kayo hindi nakikita dyan, ganoon karami ang mga taong namatay during the martial law. In Palimbang, Sultan Kudarat alone, because that time there are also incidents happen somewhere in Zamboanga and somewhere in Visayas, if I'm not mistaken. Sa Visayas is yung mga IP naman doon ang mga namatay. So ito very brutal yung mga stories. Here itong tinuturo ko sa cursor, ito nakita niya mismo yung kanyang tatay, yung kanyang pinsan kung papaano pinatay ng military in front of his eyes. Ito. Yan siya. And kaya ganun na lang yung kanyang pagkainis, pagkagalit doon sa mga sundalo. Itong taong ito. And also ito siya ay na-rape. Yan siya. And also si Ma'am Miriam Kanda is one of the victim before. Kaya siya yung naging tulay namin in coordination with UP, in coordination with HRBMC to conduct this oral historiography. So Malisbong Mass Grave, ito po yun siya. May mga pangalan po yung mga bato na yan. Kung kagaya sinabi ko kung gaano kadami yung mga nakikita niyong bato, ganoon karami yung kanilang yung namatay. So and also we also conducted orientation sa mga interviewees namin. Ito yung mga survivor na naiwan. So, since sila yung mga survivor, sila yung aming mga primary respondents of the study. Yan sila. Ayan. And also, as an output of our research, last November 2019, we have this launching of the stories of the Palimbang Mosque Massacre that was held in Marco Polo, Davao City. And it was graced or it was covered by Davao City, the DepEd Davao City, some colleges there were invited, and it was covered by ABCBN Davao City. And as you can see, itong book na to, we plan this book to integrate really in the curriculum. Say, for example, untold stories during massacre. I mean, during martial law. So, yun siya. So, for now, we have nagkaroon ng bunga ito because there are some families who were kumbaga binayaran sila ng gobyerno, nagkaroon ng reparation. And for our long term na plan is to integrate talaga these stories of Palimbang Mosque in curriculum. And kami po yan sila. This is from Maguindanao, from Bangsamoro. Yan siya. Bangsamoro government. And ako as part of the team, I always said sa aking mga kasamahan sa aking mga estudyante, if there are some questions in your mind, do not stop thinking that that's the end of your learning. Because learning will not stop unless you refuse from it. And by that, thank you so much for listening and have a good day.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. We do believe that learning is a continuous process. Okay, so thank you for those very informative things, no, na talagang you have imparted to each one of us. Ayan, congrats, sir. That is according to Ma'am Floribet Nepomuceno. Ayan. So, by the way, maybe before we're going to proceed, are there any questions or clarification regarding with the topics? Anybody from the group? Okay, wala naman. Okay. So, ayan. Thank you so much again, sir. Jonathan. I hope that you are still inspired to listen, no, and gain information about this webinar. I hope you are still awake because we still have our last speaker this morning to talk about the case study. She is also a teacher for 14 years. She graduated from MSU Jensen with Bachelor in Elementary Education with a specialization in Social Studies. She also finished a Master of Arts in Education in the same school. She was once a school paper advisor way back 2017 to 2018. And she has been the research coordinator since 2019 up to the present. Would you please help me welcome our last speaker, Madam Floribet Nepomuceno. A virtual applause, please. Thank you. Ma'am?
Hello. Good morning.
Po.
Okay, thank you so much for that presentation. I'm going to share my screen. Background. Qualitative case study methodology. Background. This qualitative case study is a research method that allows for the investigation of a phenomenon in its context using a variety of data sources. This guarantees that the topic is not examined through a single lens, but rather through a multitude of lenses, allowing for the discovery and understanding of numerous aspects of the event. Case study technique is guided by two main approaches, one proposed by Robert Stake and the other by Robert Yen. Both want to make sure that the issue of interest is thoroughly investigated and that the substance of the phenomena is revealed, but their approaches are quite different and worthy of discussion. Philosophical underpinnings. First, both Stake and Yen use a constructivist perspective to approach case studies. Truth, according to constructivists, is relative and depending on one's perspective. This paradigm acknowledges the importance of subjective human creation of meaning, but does not deny altogether some sense of objectivity, according to the authors. Pluralism is emphasized rather than relativism, with a focus on the circular dynamic tension between subject and object. Constructivism is based on the idea that reality is created socially. The closeness of this technique is one of its benefits while allowing participants to narrate their story. Partnership between the researcher and the participant. Participants are able to convey their perspectives on reality through these stories, which allows the researcher to gain a deeper understanding of them, the acts of the participants. When to use case study approach. So, when is it appropriate to apply a case study method? According to Yan, a case study design should be considered when A. The study's goal is to answer how and why questions. B. You can't control the participants' behavior. And C. You want to address contextual circumstances because you think they're important to the phenomenon under investigation. Or D. The distinction between phenomenon and context is hazy. For example, Baxter conducted a study of nursing students' decision-making to determine the source of decisions made by nursing students and the factors that influence those decisions. A case study was chosen because the case was the decision-making of nursing students, but the case could not be considered without the context, the School of Nursing, and more specifically the clinical and classroom settings. It was in these settings that the decision-making skills were developed and utilized. It would have been impossible for this author to have a true picture of nursing student decision-making without considering the context within which it occurred. Determining the case or unit of analysis. You must also evaluate the situation while deciding on your research question. Although this may appear to be a straightforward task, identifying the unit of analysis can be difficult for both novice and experienced researchers. Miles and Huberman define the case as some form of phenomenon occurring in a constrained setting. In effect, your unit of analysis is the case. Asking yourself the following questions can help you figure out what kind of case you have. Do I want to analyze the person? Is it possible for me to analyze a program? Do I want to analyze what's going on? Do I want to study the differences between businesses? Answering these questions, as well as speaking with a colleague, will help you further define your case. How do women in their 30s who have had breast cancer decide whether or not to have breast reconstruction? Is an example of a question. In this case, for instance, consider the decision-making process of women between the ages of 30 and 40 who have been diagnosed with breast cancer. However, it's possible that you're less engaged in decision-making and more interested in focusing on something specific about the lives of women in their 30s and 40s. The instance in the first example would be the decision-making of this group of women, which would be evaluated as a process, whereas the case in the second example would be a study of individuals or the experiences of 30-year-old women. In these situations, the focus has moved. Okay. This is how you develop your case study research questions. Case examples. Number 1. This is the decision-making process of women between the age of 30 and 40 years. The research questions. How do women between the ages of 30 and 40 years decide whether or not to have reconstructive surgery after a radical mastectomy? what factors influence their decision. Number 2, the experiences of 30 to 40-year-old women following radical mastectomy faced with the decision of whether or not to undergo reconstructive surgery. The questions can be how women 30 to 40 years of age describe their post-op or post-operation after 6 months experiences following a radical mastectomy. Do these experiences influence their decision making related to breast reconstructive surgery? Number 3, case example. The decision-making process related to breast reconstruction post-radical mastectomy of women between the age of 30 and 40 years attending 4 cancer centers in Ontario. The research questions: how do women ages 30 to 40 attending 4 different cancer centers in Ontario describe their decision-making related to breast reconstructive surgery following a radical mastectomy? Binding the case. After you've decided what your case will be, you'll need to figure out what it won't be. One of the most prevalent case study mistakes is that researchers tend to try to answer a subject that is too wide or a topic that has too many aims for a single study. Several authors, including Yen and Stake, have stated that putting boundaries around a case can prevent this explosion from happening. The following are some ideas on how to bind a case. A. By time and place. B. By time and activity. And C. By subject, context, and definition. Binding the case will ensure that the scope of your research remains reasonable. Consider the case of a study with women who defined parameters would need to include a succinct explanation of breast cancer and reconstructive surgery, must determine whether or not to have reconstructive surgery. I'd have to say where these women were getting care or where they were earning money. These decisions, as well as the time period in which we wish to hear about them, such as within 6 months of a radical mastectomy. It would be absurd for me to examine the decisions made by all women in their 30s in Canada who had breast cancer and undergone reconstructive surgery. In contrast, I'd like to investigate solitary women in their 30s who have had treatment at a tertiary care center in a specific southwestern Ontario hospital. The lines demarcate what will and will not be researched as part of the research project scope. In a qualitative case study, the establishment of limits is crucial. In a quantitative investigation, developing inclusion and exclusion criteria for sample selection is comparable. The difference is that these borders also show the study's breadth and depth rather than just the sample size. Determining the type of case study. Once you've concluded that a qualitative case study is the best way to answer your research question, as well as the case and its bounds, you'll need to decide what kind of case study to do. The choice of a particular type. The overall study purpose will drive the case study design. Do you want to describe a case, learn about it, or compare it to other cases? Stake and Yen utilize different words to describe different case studies. Yen divides case studies into 3 categories: explanatory, exploratory, and descriptive. He also distinguishes between a single and a holistic approach. There are 2 types of case studies: single case studies and multiple case studies. Case studies are classified as intrinsic, instrumental, or collective by Stake. Definitions and examples of different types of case studies. Number 1, explanatory. This type of case study would be used if you were seeking to answer a question that sought to explain the presumed causal links in real-life interventions that are too complex for the survey or experimental strategies. In evaluation language, the explanations would link program implementations with program effects. So this is the published study example. You can actually search this in the internet. Joyat 2002, analyzing a web-based e-commerce learning community, a case study in Brazil. Second, exploratory. This type of case study is used to explore those situations in which the intervention being evaluated has no clear single set of outcomes. So we also have an example there, as you can see. Next one is the descriptive. This type of case study is used to determine an intervention or phenomenon and the real-life context in which it occurred. Okay, example here, coping with menstruation, understanding the needs of women with Parkinson's disease. Next one, multiple case studies. A multiple case study enables the researcher to explore differences within and between cases. The goal is to replicate findings across cases. Because comparisons will be drawn, it is imperative that the cases are chosen carefully so that the researcher can predict similar results across cases or predict contrasting results based on a theory. Example, innovative community services for rape victims, an application of multiple case study methodology. Next is intrinsic. Stake uses the term intrinsic and suggests that researchers who have a genuine interest in the case should use this approach when the intent is to better understand the case. It is not undertaken primarily because this case represents other cases or because it illustrates a particular trait or problem, but because in all its particularity and ordinariness, the case itself is of interest. The purpose is not to come to understand some abstract construct or generic phenomenon. The purpose is not to build theory, although that is an option. Okay, we have here an example. We do things together, a case study of couplehood in dementia. Next one, instrumental. This is used to accomplish something other than understanding a particular situation. It provides insight into an issue or helps to refine a theory. The case is of secondary interest. It plays a supportive role, facilitating or understanding of something else. The case is often looked at in depth, in context, scrutinized, its ordinary activities detailed, and because it helps the researcher pursue external interests. The case may or may not be seen as typical of other cases. Example, stamp. Components and observable behavior that indicate potential for patient violence in emergency departments. Next one, we have collective. Collective case studies are similar in nature and description to multiple case studies. Example, role stress in professional life of the school music teacher, a collective case study. Single case or multiple case study designs. Single case. In addition to determining the case and the precise kind of case study to be undertaken, researchers must decide whether to conduct a single case study or if a numerous case study will provide a better understanding of the phenomenon. We may begin to examine how to select the kind of case study and the necessary number of cases to study if we revisit the issue of breast reconstruction surgery. A single comprehensive case could be the decision of one woman or a group of 30-year-old women undergoing post-mastectomy breast reconstruction. However, keep in mind that you must also evaluate the context. So, Because this is an unusual or extreme case, are you going to look at these women in one environment? If as a result, a comprehensive single case study can be considered. Single case with embedded unit. A comprehensive case study with embedded units would allow the researcher to examine the case if they were interested in looking at the same issue but were now intrigued by the diverse decisions made by women attending different clinics within one hospital, while taking into account the impact of various clinics and their associated characteristics in women's decision making. When you consider that data may be evaluated within the subunits independently, and between the different subunits, the capacity to look at subunits that are located within a bigger case is powerful, or throughout all subunits. The ability to do such in-depth studies simply adds to the case clarity. The blunder that new researchers make, they fail to return to the global issue that they started out to address because they analyze at the individual component level. Multiple case study. Multiple case study is required when there are more than one case in a study. This is frequently confused with conducting many experiments. What is the difference between a holistic case study with embedded components and a multiple case study? You might wonder. That's an excellent question. The basic answer is that every one of us has a unique context. The circumstances, multiple or collective case study will allow the researcher to examine the situation separately as well as compare them, while a holistic case study with embedded units allows the researcher to comprehend only one unique, extreme critical case. A case study with embedded units allows the researcher to understand multiple cases. Using the same example, if you wanted to research women, you could a multiple or collective case in diverse health institutions across the country would be recommended. The case would still be about women in their 30s making decisions, but would be able to examine the many decision-making processes at work by women in various locations. We examine various situations in a multiple case study to understand the similarities and differences between them. Ian explains how many case studies can be used to anticipate either in A, similar outcomes, or B, contrasting results but for different reasons predictability. This style of design offers both benefits and drawbacks. Overall, the evidence generated by this form of study is deemed solid and dependable, but it can be time-consuming and costly to carry out. Case studies are described by Stake using three different terms: intrinsic, instrumental, and collective. Conduct an intrinsic case study if you're interested in a unique circumstance according to Stake. This just signifies that you are passionate about the issue and are aware that the results are limited in their applicability. If you want to gain insight and understanding into a certain circumstance or occurrence, Stake recommends doing an instrumental case study. When more than one case is being investigated, this author also uses the phrase collective case study. Here, the same example that was used to describe several case studies can be employed. It is critical to consider the extra components required for creating and performing a rigorous case study once the case has been chosen and the case boundaries have been set. These include propositions, which may or may not be present, B, the application of a conceptual framework, C, the development of research questions, and D, the logic linking data to propositions, and E, the criteria for selecting participants, interpreting the results. Proposition. In any case study, propositions are useful, but they aren't always present. When a case study proposal includes precise ideas, the researcher is more likely to be able to limit the scope of the study and raise the feasibility of finishing the project. The more explicit propositions a study contains, the better. More importantly, it will stay within reasonable grounds. So, where do these ideas come from? Propositions may be based on research, personal or professional experience, theories and other sources, and or empirical database generalization. Case study propositions. Potential propositions. Number 1, women in their 30s most often decide not to have reconstructive surgery. Source. These are only examples of literature and do not reflect a full literature review, so you can actually see that. Second proposition, women choose not to have reconstructive surgery, post-mastectomy, due to the issues related to acute pain. As you can see, there is our literature. Next, women face many personal and social barriers to breast reconstructive surgery. Next one, women are influenced by their healthcare providers when making this decision. Last one, women in different regions of Canada make different decisions about breast reconstructive surgery post-mastectomy. Issues. STAKE employs issues to lead the research process, which adds to the uncertainty surrounding the adoption of different types of qualitative case study methodologies. Wherein uses propositions to guide the research process, STAKE uses issues. Issues are complex and intertwined with political, social, historical, and most importantly, personal situations. In examining situations, all of these meanings are critical. The propositions and issues, according to both Yin and STAKE, are necessary parts of the process. Both case study research and the construction of a conceptual framework that guides the research contribute to the establishment of a conceptual framework. Conceptual framework. STAKE and Yin both mention conceptual frameworks, but neither fully describes them nor provides a model to use as a reference. Miles and Haberman are a resource that provides examples of conceptual frameworks. These authors make a point that the conceptual framework serves many purposes. A. Determining who will be included in the case and who will not. B. Articulating what relationships may be present based on logic, theory, and or experience. And C. Allowing the researcher to make decisions, organize general concepts into mental beams. The conceptual framework serves as a study's anchor and is resorted to during data interpretation. In her study of nursing student decision-making, for example, Baxter constructed an initial framework. The foundation was built on the literature as well as her own life experiences. The most important constructions were proposed in the following way. Okay, look at this. As you can see, so you have clinical setting, PBL setting, types of decisions, decision-making time, internal influencing factors, and external influencing factors. So this is just an example. The framework does not show relationship between the constructs, as the reader will notice. As the study unfolds, the framework should continue to evolve and be finalized, and the linkages between the proposed components will emerge as data is processed. All of the themes that arose from the data analysis will be included in the final conceptual framework. Returning to the concepts that initially established the conceptual framework, according to Yen, assures that the analysis is reasonable in scope and that the final report has structure. One of the disadvantages of a conceptual framework is that it is not flexible. It's possible that it will limit the inductive technique to investigating a phenomenon to avoid becoming deductive. Researchers are encouraged to keep a log of their thoughts and decisions and share them with other researchers to see whether the framework has influenced their thinking too much. Data sources. The use of diverse data sources is a feature of case study research, an approach that also improves data reliability. Documentation, archival records, interviews, physical artifacts, direct observations, and participant observation are all examples of possible data sources. In contrast to other qualitative methodologies, case study research allows investigators to collect and incorporate quantitative survey data, allowing them to gain a more comprehensive knowledge of the topic under investigation. Data from these many sources is then combined in a case study. Rather than being addressed independently, the analysis process converges. Each data source is a component of the puzzle, contributing to the researcher's overall understanding of the phenomenon. As the numerous strands of evidence are braided together to generate a better understanding of the case, this convergence strengthens the findings. Although the ability to collect data from a variety of sources is appealing due to rigor that can be associated with this strategy, there are risks. One of them is the accumulation of massive volumes of data that must be managed and analyzed. Researchers frequently become lost in the data. To put it in another way, a computerized database is frequently required to organize and manage the vast amount of data in order to bring some structure to the data collecting. Database. Both Yen and Stake understand the necessity of data organization. The benefit of using a database to complete this operation is that raw data may be inspected independently. The use of a database increases the case study's reliability since it allows the researcher to manage and organize data sources such as notes, documents, and other sources. A database can be used to store tabular materials, narratives, photos, and audio recordings for subsequent retrievals. CQDAS, or Computer-Aided Qualitative Data Analysis Software, offers an unlimited number of bins into which data can be gathered and sorted. These tools permit the recording of source details, the time and date of data collections, storage, and search capabilities in addition to the development of bins. When creating a case study database, all of these factors are crucial. Benefits and cons of such a database have been discussed in the literature, with one of the most significant disadvantages being the researcher's separation from the data. Analysis. Data collection and analysis take place in the same way they do in any other qualitative study simultaneously. The sort of analysis used will be determined by the case study. Pattern matching, relating data to propositions, explanation building, time series analysis, logic models, and cross-case synthesis are 5 strategies for analysis that Ian briefly discusses. Stake, on the other hand, refers to category aggregation and direct interpretation as different forms of analysis. The scope of this study does not allow for an explanation of each of these strategies. As a new researcher, it's crucial to familiarize yourself with several forms of analysis and select which method suits you best. Returning to the propositions, if employed throughout the analysis phase of any case study, is an important habit according to Yin for various reasons. First, the temptation is to study data that is outside the scope of the research questions. This technique leads to a focused analysis. Second, it's a good idea to look at competing ideas, make an attempt to explain a phenomenon in a different way. Third, when more ideas and competitor concepts are addressed, unaccepted, or rejected as part of this iterative process, confidence in the findings grows. One risk of the analysis phase is that each data source will be evaluated separately and the results will be provided separately. This isn't what a case study is about. Rather, the researcher must guarantee that the data are converged in order to make the best possible decision. Understand the situation as a whole, not the numerous components of it or contributing circumstances that influence it. As a new researcher, one way to guarantee that you stay faithful to the original case is to involve other members of the research team in the study phase and to request comments on your capacity to combine data sources in order to answer the research objectives. Reporting a case study. Due to the complicated nature of this technique, reporting a case study can be a difficult assignment for any researcher. Staff convey findings in a brief manner, but it's the researcher's job to turn a complicated phenomenon into a simple one. The researcher will be able to understand the format. The purpose of the report is to describe the study in such detail that the researcher feels as if they were an active participant in the research and can evaluate whether the study findings are correct, could be put to use in their own situation. It is critical that the researcher describes the situation, both the context in which the phenomenon occurs and the phenomenon itself. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to writing a case study report. However, some suggestions include delivering a tale to the reader, providing a chronological report, or addressing its individual proposition. The propositions must be addressed in order for the report to remain focused and answer the research question. Many inexperienced researchers fall into the trap of being sidetracked with the mountains of interesting data that are available, insignificant in relation to the study question. To fully comprehend the findings, they are compared and contrasted with what is available in the published literature in order to place the new data within the context of previous data. 6 ways for reporting a case study are suggested by Yin: linear, comparative, chronological, theory building, suspense, and unsequence are some of them. Strategies for achieving trustworthiness in case study research. There are various basic key parts of the study design that can be combined to improve overall study quality or trustworthiness for the novice researcher creating and implementing a case study project. Researchers that use this method should make sure that enough information is presented so that readers may assess the work's validity or reliability. Novice researchers must ensure that A. The case study research question is clearly worded. Propositions are offered, if applicable to the case study type, and the question is substantiated. B. The case study design is appropriate for the research question. And C. Deliberate sampling is used. Russell, Gregory, Plug, and DiCenso and Goyat found that A. Case study methodologies were used, B. Data were collected and maintained consistently, and C. Data were correctly evaluated. Conclusion. Case study research entails more than just looking into a specific person or event. This method can be used to deal with a wide range of circumstances, from simple to complex. It allows the researcher to answer how and why questions while also taking into account how a phenomenon is influenced by the context in which it occurs. A case study is a wonderful opportunity for a novice researcher to get tremendous insight into a subject. It allows the researcher to collect information from a range of sources and combine it to illuminate the case. That's it. Thanks for watching.
Okay, thank you so much for that, ma'am. Floor. Parang hindi ko na-digest lahat. Okay. So, ayan, thank you so much for all the resource speaker that we have this morning. Before we're going to have the certificates, okay, may I ask the body if you have some queries or clarification regarding the topics? Okay.
To anyone who wants to have a copy of the report, i-send ko dito yung link sa
Okay
chat
po.
box.
Okay, thank you po. Ayan. So, meron po magtanong dyan or mag-clarify. Open po tayo. Anybody from the group? I hope, Sir Jonathan, under your advisory, no, or your class, someday somehow magkakaroon tayo, Sir Jo, ng research expo, and then we are going to invite again our speakers for to be our panel members. Ayan. Maganda kasi yon yung magkaroon tayo ng research expo so that we will be able to learn also not only the qualitative but also the quantitative kind of research or even the mixed method. Maganda yun siya. Okay? Pwede pa yan ulit, Sir Jo. Pwede yun, no? Magkaroon tayo ng mga pag magkaroon tayo ng research output with our students. Pwede siguro tayo. Willing naman talaga siguro na upo again yung ating mga resource speaker to be our panel members. Okay? Ayan. So, wala tayong clarification dyan or anything na pwede ating i-ask sa ating mga speakers. Ay, wala sila, Sir Jo.
So, ibig sabihin siguro, naintindihan.
Or gutom na.
Or
gutom na.
Okay, madali na lang, no? Okay. So, pag wala, I hope na talagang, no, everything was digested by us. Okay, kahit na, ayun, medyo konti lang yung oras natin. Alam ko talaga that our speakers, no, have a still lot of information sana. Kaya lang yung oras natin. But anyway, I hope na meron pang darating na mga webinar regarding research. Okay. So to give and show our appreciation and gratefulness to our speaker, I am happy to award the certificate of recognition. So let me read to you the citation of the certificate. Okay, certificate of recognition is awarded to or given to Mr. Judy L. Baltimore in grateful recognition of his outstanding service and exemplary contribution as resource speaker towards the success of the webinar on advancing design in qualitative research on November 13, 2021 via Google Meet teleconferencing. Given this 30th day of November 2021 at this office, Santos City, Philippines. Signed, Dr. Genaro Japos, the Professor in Research Methods in Mindanao State University, Santos City. Signed, Dr. Chan Roth, Honorary President in Asian Society of Teachers for Research Incorporated, Ministry of Education, Youth, and Sports, Cambodia. Signed, Dr. Ava Claire Marie Robles, the Dean, School of Graduate Studies, Mindanao State University, General Santos City. Okay, a virtual applause po. Yan. Okay, the same certificate. Ayan, Sir Judy, thank you. Okay, the
Thank you
same
po.
Opo. Certificate is awarded to Mr. Jonathan P. Roque. Yan, clap, clap, clap.
Thank you, Ma'am Jo.
And, okay, same certificate. It's awarded to Mr. Isagani Z. Zolina, sir.
Thank you.
And the same certificate is awarded also to Madam Floribet Z. Nepomuceno, ma'am. Ayan, clap, clap, clap na tayo. And to all the participants, no, looking at the attendance, kanina 40 plus tayo. So we are overwhelmed dahil you really responded with this webinar that Sir Jonathan, ano yan, yung facilitated. So thank you so much. And by the way, the participants also will receive their certificates of participation through their email, Sir Jo.
Yes, Ma'am Jo.
Okay, so ayun. Ayan, sir, any further announcements, sir? Sir Jonathan?
So far, wala naman siguro kung wala man sila mga questions.
Okay, so
Oo.
ayun. So looking forward for a more, ano yan, webinar with a different topics, sir, no? Mas, ano, pero kung ako lang, mas prefer ko pa din yung research, no? Especially magkaroon tayo ng research expo. Ayan. So, again, thank you for all the inputs daw according to Ma'am Jenaline. Okay, welcome po, ma'am. Okay, thank you, participants, for joining the webinar this morning according to Ma'am Judy. Ay, to Sir Judy, I mean. Okay, ayan. So thank you so much, Sir Jonathan, for giving me also this opportunity to be with you this morning. Thank you, Sir Jo. And also...
Ma'am Jo, may closing remarks pa.
Oo, sir. Wait lang. Okay, sir. Ayan. Nagte-thank you ako, Sir Jo, para just in case mag-out na yung iba, di ba? And to formally close this program, let us hear a closing remark from Madam Floribet Nepomuceno. Ayan, ma'am. Hindi po kita nakalimutan.
Ako di ay. Okay. So, of course, I'm really thankful for this opportunity. Although this is a requirement. This is just a requirement in our subject with under Sir Japos. We actually learned a lot from this. I am also thankful to my group mates, Sir Judy, Sir Jonathan, Sir Isagani, thank you so much. And for all the participants, thank you so much. And to you, Ma'am Jonaline, thank you so much for hosting this event. So hopefully, we can have this kind of webinar next time.
Yes.
And actually, we are willing to help or whatever contribution that we can give. And also, I have sent the copy of my, and I hope all the member of this group will also send the copy of the reports, so that the participants can actually review if they want to. And again, thank you so much.
Ayan. Clap,
Happy
clap,
lunch.
Ayan. Thank you, Ma'am Flor. Thank you po. Ayan. Thank you, According to Sir Judy, thank you sa lahat daw. Okay na mga co-speakers niya for giving him the chance. Okay, God bless everyone. God bless you too, sir. Ayan. So, Sergio. Wow, thank you so much, Sir Judy. Nya, sir, gikulbaan pud baya ako, sir. Ayan, so siguro may I request everyone to open your camera for our pictorials. Pictorial, okay, pictorial. Ayan. Siguro i-open natin. Ayan, magandang ano ito eh. Ayan, may I request everyone. Every 2, every 32. 32 lahat tayo dito. Sige, dami pang hindi naka-open. Ayan. Thank you din sa mga dati naming kasamahan sa DepEd, no, from Mangudadato Elementary School. Ayan, thank you sa inyong presence. Dami pa, hindi naka-open. Open tayo para ano, meron tayong MOV, char. Ayaw mo seryoso kay Sabado yung baya karon.
Ma'am Jo, si Sir Isagani baka may gustong pasalamatan.
Ah, yes, sir. Sige, go on, sir.
Hello po. Hello, Ma'am Jonalyn. Thank you so much for facilitating this event. And also to my resource speaker, Sir Jonathan, salamat kaayo. Pasensya na kay busy yun diri sa ano ka SBM validation namo pa. Prepare me. So kulang yung akong preparation ba. Ma'am Floribet and Sir Judy Baldimore, and to my co-teachers who are joining, Ma'am Ibiel, may right na siya, no? So thank you so much sa lahat ng participants. So God bless us all.
Okay, God bless too, sir. Ayan. So, ready na tayo? Sir Jo, ikaw na mag-capture, sir, para makasmile po kung ano, taman, charot. Sige, mag 1, 2, 3 po daw ka, sir, eh. Nakamute mo ka, Sir Jo.
Sige, please open your cam.
Oh, 1, 2, 3 na daw, eh. One, two, three, and smile. Ayan. Okay. Thank you, thank you.
Thank
Have a
you,
good day
ma'am.
po
Thank
lahat.
you.
Ayan.
God bless.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
God
po.
bless po. See you sa
Congrats
next na mga
everyone.
Thank you,
webinars
ma'am,
po.
sir.
Thank you, Ma'am Sir.
Invite me
Thank
again.
you.
Thanks, Sir Joe.
Invite me again. Ayan. Thank you. Sir Tan, nakamute ka, sir.
Ay, Sir Judy, kay Ma'am Isagani, kasi pwede ta maulihi. Ma'am Floribet, and Ma'am Jo.
Ay, mag-out.
Yes
Ay,
po,
dili pa
sir.
dahil.
Yes po, sir.
Sige,
Hello,
dili
hello.
pa dahil ko mag-out, Sir Jo. Kasali ko da, sir.
Kasali ka pa, Ma'am Jo.
Aw. Ayaw kong i-hot seat, ha? Char.
Hello sa mga ano po namin, mga participants po namin. Pwede na po kayong mag-leave. Thank you so much po sa inyong participation. Ma'am Judy, Ma'am Flor, Sir Judy, Ma'am Flor, Ma'am Jo, and
Opo.
Sir Isgani. Maiwan muna
Opo.
tayo.
Opo, sir. Opo, sir.
Yes, sir.
Opo, sir.
Sir, hello. Sir Joel. Sir,
Ma'am, Ma'am Anani,
ano? Paki ano kay Ma'am An. Hello. Kasama ko yan, sir.
pwede na po kayong mag-leave, Ma'am Anani. Thank you so much. Sir Joel and Ma'am Christine Namion. Thank you so much po for attending the webinar. Sige. Murag di na sila mag-leave. Sige, let's evaluate po yung ating ginawa kanina. Doon sa time. Did we achieve our time frame? Nagsakto
Ano,
lang,
sir?
no? What can you say, Sir Judy?
Opo, sir.
Murag okay lang, Ma'am Flor? Sir Isagani?
Okay lang, sir, kasi I think
Okay lang
20
siya.
minutes lang, no? Medyo, tama ba, sir, yung na-agreehan natin 20 minutes?
Oo.
So ako, isian ko lang yung slide. Kasi baka sumobra tayo sa
Oo nga. Sige. How about the participants? What can you say? Sir Isagani, what can you say? Ba ng mga in-invite mo, sir, nag-respond ba sila?
May nag-join na mga iilan lang kasi sir, yung busy yung mga co-teacher ko ngayon kasi SBM evaluation namin sa 16 sa division level. So yun ang problema ko sa ako, lutang na lutang din ako ngayon kasi napulaw kami. Akong espiritu baga murag ako way tulog. Then ang mga kauban nako pud busy pud diri lagi namin diri sa school. Pasensya na gid sir kay.
Okay lang.
Oo. Hindi sila lahat naka-participate, naka-prepare ng documents ba for SPM validation. Yun yung namin ngayon dito. Situation.
At least may representative ang bawat natin nila.
May lima.
How about sa iyo, Sir Judy?
Yes, sir. Good morning. I invited my MAED reading students, and some of them fortunately joined, sir, sa ating webinar ngayon.
Thank you so much, Sir Judy. How about Ma'am Flor? Wala si Ma'am Flor. Ako naman, murag nag-worry ko ganiha sa atong participants, kinikita ko murag 10, 12, murag ana ba. Kaya in-invite ko yung mga students ko sa BEd, sa undergrad, and some of them ay nakapasok but hindi talaga natapos yung the whole duration ng webinar. But anyway, it's nice. Napakaganda ng ating webinar considering na parang inisip natin na ito ay ay requirements, but for the impact, I guess at least meron tayong naibahaging sa kanila lessons and wisdom. To Ma'am Jo. Ma'am Jo, thank you so much. Alam nyo, kagabi sir, gabi na kami nag-uusap, and to my colleague, with regards sa posters, maraming mga edit-edit. To Ma'am Roxanne, thank you so much din. And, yun. So, I hope na sabi ng mga natin kanina, mga participants, this is just a beginning. Gusto pa nila ng marami. And kami naman sa college, we have this research expo. Narinig ko po sinabi ni Ma'am Jo kanina na baka they are going to invite us as the panel. Are you willing to give time, Ma'am Sir Judy?
Yes po, sir. Yes po, sir. No problem. I am very willing.
Thank you. How about Sir Isagani?
As long as walang conflict sa schedule, sir, I'm
Wow.
willing to extend my help, particularly in anong type of research ang gusto ko sana yung sa experimental, sir, ba? Like
May
quasi
mga
experimental.
ganyan
Yun
na,
talaga,
ng mga design
yun
na
talaga ang ko forte. Kasi yun ang research ko eh.
How about Ma'am Flor? Wala si Ma'am Flor, wala lang gid sa nag-ano ha.
Ma'am Flor Beth.
So by that, thank you so much. Thank you for your cooperation. At saka pag may mga lapses man tayo, hindi natin control yon, yung net and yung mga technicals. Thank you so much and have a good day. Ma'am Jo, thank you so much.
Sir Jonathan.
Sir?
Wala ba tayong contribution kami?
Okay na siguro sir, kay ako na lang bahala dito sa kuan. Sa akong partner sa school, kay may agreement na kami dito. Pwede man siguro sir sa inyo, halimbawa sa mga kuan ninyo, sa mga co-teacher ninyo, tagaan nyo sila load, pwede.
Sige. Thank you so much, sir.
Oo.
Just mag-message lang ako, sir, sa'yo.
Okay. Sige.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ma'am John.
Opo,
Sige,
thank
Sir
you din
Judy.
po.
Salamat, Ma'am Jo.
Ma'am Jo, Ma'am Flor, bye-bye.
Opo. Thank you,
Bye-bye. Sir
Tay.
Sagani, thank
Ma'am
you,
Jo,
Ma'am
ito yung
Flor.
recording sa,
Judy.
please.
Sir Jonathan.
I-send
Yes.
anay.
Opo, sir.
On ko lang dira sa imo balay karon, tapos amoabi ng amon nga kuan nga proof. Contact kami. I-post pa gid sa YouTube.
Ay, no. Sir, i-edit mo pa naman yan, sir, no?
Oo. Hindi na sir, raw na. Mas magandang raw.
Mga dito, mga portion nga may mga glitches, no?
Okay lang. Sige, at least
Stop ko na ang recording. Stop ko na ang recording, Sir Jo.
Oo. Sige, bye-bye. Salamat, Gid.
Sige, thank you, Sir Jonathan.
Bye-bye. Apo.
Ay, sorry po. Tawag ko dito. Then nag-out po sa mga kayo.
Wala ka.